So as we pick up with our third Spider-Verse video, what we do here is we pick up with Ben Reilly, Jessica Drew, and Kane. Now keep in mind, they've arrived on Earth 1, and the whole reason for this is because they've been able to trace the source of where these clones are coming from, and the clones are originating from this planet. And when they arrive here, what they find is that this version of Earth seems to be some sort of technological paradise. That is to say, it seems very technologically advanced. It's really kind of how you would expect to see a future, maybe utopian planet Earth. But as they begin to move around, as they begin to look around, they realize things don't necessarily seem right. That, of course, they're moving through the building they've arrived in, and they see what appear to be maybe clones or some kind of individuals who, for whatever reason, are marching in a single file, and they really don't pay any attention to anybody else, as if they're somehow zombies of some sort. And so what we do is we see that as they're investigating, they're trying to figure things out, they ultimately come across a scientist. And the scientist sees them dress up in this hospital garb, which was their choice of clothing in order to keep a low profile. And the scientist asks them why it is that they're out of their groups, why it is that they've deviated from their groups. And so the scientist alerts the guards. Now, Kane is able to subdue the scientist to basically, I guess, use his webbing to adhere him to the ceiling and to keep his mouth shut. But for the most part, the damage has already been done. We see that these various forces show up, begin to try to overpower the Spider-Men. But as they're able to take these soldiers out, we see that Tony Stark arrives. Now, Tony Stark tries to fight the duo here, but of course, in the process, Ben Reilly's knocked out, and Kane is able to knock out Tony Stark in turn. And so once Ben Reilly comes to, he begins speaking with Jessica Drew. Again, this is Jessica Drew from the Ultimate Universe. And Jessica Drew says that she's been able to basically dismantle the armor of Tony Stark. And when she did, they began interrogating Tony Stark. And what they asked Tony Stark is what's going on here, what the whole basis is behind all these things. And what he says is that this is Genix's planet. And so what happens here is that, again, as they're interrogating Tony Stark says that he's the one that's responsible for a majority of the technology that's taken place on this planet. And so all we really know here is that at some point along the line, Genix appears to have somehow shown up on this planet Earth and then basically force everybody into a state of subservience. Or it could very well be that it's always been this way. We don't really know how it is this planet came to be the way that it is. But what we do know is that this group of Scarlet Spiders, that Ben Reilly and Kane and Jessica Drew decide that the only real way for them to, again, get this stuff figured out is to go directly for Genix. And so when they ask Tony Stark where Genix is at, he says that he's in the Baxter building. And so what happens here is we see that Ben Reilly, that Kane, and Jessica Drew show up at the Baxter building. But what's going on is that that Ben Reilly is apparently dressed up as Tony Stark himself. He's actually wearing Tony Stark's armor here. And the whole basis, as far as we can tell from this plan, is that Ben Reilly, dressed as Tony Stark, is basically bringing these two individuals in, bringing in Jessica Drew and Kane as people that he's captured, which can be taken directly to Genix himself. But what happens here is their plan is basically thrown awry when Johnny Storm appears. And Johnny Storm is, again, wearing some kind of military outfit indicative of the kind of military outfit you would see on this planet. And it seems as though he's working for Genix. And he asks Tony Stark what's going on. And so what we do here is we pick up with Peter Parker and Superior Spider-Man. But what happens here is, again, both Superior Spider-Man and Peter Parker are arguing over who it is that should lead them. What Superior Spider-Man says is that his team was holding on just fine. Dr. Octopus says that they were doing all right. They were finding a way to keep themselves masked from the inheritors. They were putting plans together, and then Peter Parker's team stumbled in. And by virtue, they had brought Silk, and because they had brought Silk, they had drawn the inheritors to them. And so what Superior Spider-Man is basically saying here is that Peter Parker is inept as a leader. He doesn't really know what he's doing, and because of that, he really shouldn't be a leader. But again, we continue seeing them going about, we continue to see them argue, but we see that Peter Parker, realizing that he is basically the previous version of himself, that is to say, he is in possession of his body before Dr. Octopus takes it over, basically calls Dr. Octopus's bluff here. He calls Superior Spider-Man's bluff, and he tells Superior Spider-Man to kill him. But Superior Spider-Man says that he can't, the reason being because if he did, it would create a paradox, and Superior Spider-Man would simply just cease to exist. And so while Superior Spider-Man is distracted here, Peter Parker knocks him unconscious. And so what we do is we transition back to the home of the inheritors for a moment, and we see that Solace and Morlun are speaking with one another, and what they're doing is they're talking about this prophecy. And in relation to this prophecy, what they're saying here is that 3 new pieces have appeared on the board: the Other, the Bride, and the Scion. And again, we know the Other appears to be Kane. We know that that was established during the early events of the Spider-Verse continuity. But we also know that the Bride is Silk. What we don't know here, again, is who the Scion is. But what we're going to find at the end of this arc, or the end of this story, the end of this video, is that the Scion is somebody we've seen this entire time. But what we do is we see that as the two of them are again talking, that Solace is really kind of fed up with what's been going on here. He's really kind of been fed up about basically toying around with these different Spider-Men and Spider-Women. So what he does is he tells Morlun to gather Genix, and that the three of them are going to go after all these different spiders in the safe zone. And so what happens is we jump back to the safe zone and we pick up again with Peter Parker and Superior Spider-Man. And what's happening here is the two of them have basically come to terms. I wouldn't go as far as to say that they're on the same wavelength, but at the very least they understand the necessity of there to be a leader, and that Peter Parker has basically established himself as being a more capable leader than Superior Spider-Man here. And so what happens is they begin discussing, they begin talking about the open nature of the safe zone. And what Superior Spider-Man says is they have to find some other place to go. They have to find some other place to travel to, simply because of the fact that they're far too open here. And so what Spider-Man does is he agrees, and he begins calling out to the other groups who have transitioned to their own stories, of course, to Spider-Woman, to the Scarlet Spiders, to Spider-Man 2099. Now, Peter doesn't initially get a response from either Kane or Ben Reilly, and in fact, this is a little disconcerting to him, and the reason why is because if they're not answering their communicators, then the possibility exists that they've been killed in action. They are in fact dead. But of course, Peter doesn't necessarily acknowledge this as the most guaranteed thing, because again, it would tie into the fact that things are getting relatively hopeless here. And so what we see is that he calls out to Miguel O'Hara, and Miguel O'Hara says that they're continuing to try to find a place to, to tap in and to autopsy this body of Deimos, again, trying to escape back to a safe zone here. But what we also find out from Spider-Man UK is that Spider-Woman, that Jessica Drew has chimed in and told them that Spider-Man Noir is apparently out of commission. And so what Peter Parker says is that he's going to take one of the cloaking devices from Superior Spider-Man, and he's going to take it to Spider-Man Noir for a couple reasons. The first reason is because it will allow him to stay hidden. It would allow him to stay away, but this is due to the fact that because the inheritors have already visited the Spider-Man Noir universe when they first came into contact, and when we were first introduced to Spider-Man Noir as part of the Edge of Spider-Verse and the build-up to the Spider-Verse story, he says they're most likely not going to come back, and so most likely it'll be safe for Spider-Man Noir as long as no one knows he's there. But what he also asks is if there's a way to reverse engineer this particular cloaking device, because again, these are things that have been created and tampered with at the hands of Superior Spider-Man that had previously belonged to the inheritors. And Superior Spider-Man says that he's already modified this device, and he's already traced its origin back to the homeworld of the inheritors, which is a place they could travel to if they wanted. But the problem is that if they all decided to go after the inheritors in their home world, it would be a massacre, because they're simply just not prepared for that. And so what he says is that he has a plan, and that this plan is going to involve him taking Spider-Gwen as well as Anya back to the Spider-Man Noir universe to most likely grab Jessica Drew. And the reason for this is because they need someone who can go to the home world of the inheritors and to find out what it is they're doing there, to basically be their eyes and ears, to gain information and then report that information back. And so what we do as we continue with this is we see that he also sends Miles Morales as well as Spider-Man from the Ultimate Universe cartoon show to an alternate reality, to various alternate realities. And the reason why, as Spider-Man explains, is because they need to again continue the effort of gathering as many forces as they can to bolster their ranks. And so as the groups begin to splinter off, as they begin to leave, we find that Solace and Morlun and Genix arrive. And what Solace does is he begins basically taunting the other Spider-Man characters, but we also see Genix and Morlun doing the same thing. Now, of course, Cosmic Spider-Man appears and tells them that they were fools to come there, that there's no way they can stand against the might of Cosmic Spider-Man. But what Solace says is that the Enigma Force, the power force that Cosmic Spider-Man wields, is basically pure life energy, which is exactly what him and his ilk feed on. And so what he says is that while the other members of his family may not be able to withstand the full might of the Enigma Force, that he certainly can. And so what he does is he absorbs the life energy of Cosmic Spider-Man, killing Cosmic Spider-Man in the process. And so as it stands, the other Spider-Man characters here are virtually defenseless. They have no safe haven. There's really nowhere they can go to now. And so of course they begin panicking, they begin taking off trying to find places to go to. But what we also find is that while Genix is killed in the process, that Morlun is able to locate the Scion. And the Scion is revealed to us to be the baby brother of Mayday Parker, the child Benji. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. And I will catch you guys later. Peace. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. There you can keep up with all the updates from Comics Explained and talk to me directly.